Hello everyone, I'm sorry I can't be with you today. Unfortunately, my diary conspired against me. I just can't make it. I was really delighted to have received an invitation from Trish to attend and to speak with you all. As every time Trish organises anything, it's really engaging, really meaningful, and always coming from a really good place. And I must say that's true too of our colleagues in the Chester Beatty Library also. So I suppose I'm quite disappointed not to be with you all today. And part of that disappointment is that I'm not in the beautiful surroundings of the Chester Beatty Library. And the last time I was there, it was a sun-drenched, wonderful day. And I'm especially sorry to miss their scones in their coffee shop today. So I hope you're all enjoying your surroundings there today. I suppose what I was asked to come and talk to you about is a little bit about how our primary school curriculum is changing. And I want to talk to you about why it's changing, how it's changing, and how you can all have your say in how to shape the future of the primary school curriculum. So why is the primary school changing? Well, our current primary school curriculum is actually 22 years old. It was launched back in 1999 by the then Minister of Education and Science, Micheál Martin. You may know him today. And he described the curriculum at the time as a thoroughly updated and forward-looking curriculum, reflecting the most advanced international educational thinking on how children learn. And 22 years later, many still refer to this curriculum, believe it or not, particularly teachers, as the new curriculum. But one of the questions we need to ask ourselves is, can we still say that this curriculum is a forward-looking curriculum and that one that reflects the most advanced educational research, both nationally and internationally? Does it still do what it needs to do for children and for teachers and school leaders and indeed parents and families and communities for the years ahead? So the curriculum was a cutting-edge curriculum at its time, drawing on the research and benefiting from an extensive level of engagement, particularly public engagement during the 1990s. And as we all know, the 1990s, when the curriculum was developed, and indeed the noughties, when it was implemented and enacted for the first time, were very different times. A lot has happened since then, which impacts directly on children's lives and their experiences of school today. Through research, curriculum reviews and evaluations, and indeed our work directly with schools, parents and wider stakeholders, the last 20 years have spotlighted many, many strengths of the curriculum, but also many challenges that need to be looked at. In addition, society has growing expectations of what a primary curriculum should do for children these days. And this reflects changing societal values, globalization, technological advancements, and growing concerns for commitments around sustainability, social cohesion, and of course, inclusion. There's rarely a week that goes by without a media report or an article or a radio show talking about how the curriculum needs to be adapted to support young children today. Everything from health and well-being, mental health, obesity, as I mentioned, inclusion, social cohesion, and other areas, education for sustainable development, are all come to the fore in these conversations around the curriculum and our children today. In recent years, we've worked with many schools on different aspects of the curriculum, and I'll speak a little bit more about those later on, because I know of particular interest to this group will be our work around education about religions and beliefs and ethics. We've also had many policy developments in early childhood education and indeed at junior cycle. So either side of the primary school experience at early childhood, where now up to 97% of children attend a free preschool year or 2 free preschool years as part of the ECHI scheme. And at junior cycle, the reforms there of how that has changed children's experience when they leave primary school. So we have to be conscious that within either end of primary school, there have been changes in recent years. And to put matters into really concrete terms, it might be helpful to think about today's children. A child who is born maybe this year, 2021, these children will begin primary school in September 2025 or 2026. They'll likely begin their working lives in the 2040s and probably retire late in their 2080s and 2090s. thinking about these children and the fact that the world they live in and work in is likely to be incredibly different from our own, it is time to reflect on what then is the purpose of a primary curriculum now, and how should the curriculum be structured, and what components should it include to reflect that purpose, and what should it say about teaching and learning and children for the next 10 or 15 years. These are some of the questions that we've been asking ourselves and our stakeholders and experts in the field in recent years. I look forward to presenting some of them shortly. But before I do, I want to take a minute to map out how we developed what we're now referring to as a draft primary curriculum framework. While there may be a tendency to think that we sit in cozy offices up in Dublin and just write up the curriculum in any way we think fit for children and for teachers and for parents, that is far from the case. We do an incredible amount of collaboration, partnership, engagement with stakeholders, deliberation, research, all forming the bedrock of the way in which we do our business here in the National Council for Curriculum Assessment. And there have been really three central strands to this work: drawing on extensive research, collaboration with education partners and stakeholders, as I mentioned, and working closely with schools and preschools. So since May 2018, we've been working with a network of 60 schools across the country, and these make up the wide variety and diversity of school types in Ireland. And they've been meeting every 4 to 6 weeks, and their principals and teachers bring a huge amount of experience, expertise, and perspective to the tables. And what they do is they look at the research that we're generating, they have a look at it, and they challenge each other, or they engage with it to see how it is enacted in schools. What does this mean for how for our practice in schools in light of these findings and research? This approach is really premised on the understanding of school leaders and teachers as being really central to curriculum development. A concept captured here in the work of Hargreaves and Fullen that you can see on screen. It's what teachers think, what teachers do, and what teachers are that ultimately shapes children's learning. And the approach also means that the ideas in the draft framework are grounded in the reality of primary education and schools in Ireland, while also being sufficiently aspirational. I mentioned research, and research forms the bedrock of all of our work here in the NCCA, and we've been drawing on an extensive body of literature and research, much of which is captured in a series of papers published on our website. The papers are authored by national and international researchers, including Dr. Thomas Walsh from Maynooth University, Dr. Emer Ring from Mary Immaculate College, Drs. Michael O'Leary, Zita Lysett, and Dorina Scully from DCU. And the research papers have focused on particular aspects of primary curriculum, such as the aims, pedagogy, integration, assessment, parents' perspectives, key competencies, and many more besides, as you can see on screen there. I want to speak also for a moment about lots of work that's been happening in the 20 or so years since the 99 curriculum was introduced. And what you see on screen here is a selection of projects that have been ongoing maybe for the last 10 years, really. You have a new primary language curriculum Teanga Munscola, introduced into schools in 2019. We have a maths curriculum that's in development, a coding initiative that where we saw the embedding of digital technology across the curriculum in primary schools. ASHTR, the early childhood curriculum framework, which really broke new ground in the early childhood space and has influenced the experience of children in junior and senior infants for over 10 years now. A review of relationships and sexuality education in SPHE, which has taken place in recent years and has had widespread engagement, and transitions from primary school to preschool to primary school. And I think of, I suppose, significant interest from this event today is our previous work around education about religions and beliefs and ethics. I want to spend some time looking at that for the next couple of slides, because it's been a number of years since that work has taken place in the public arena, and I want to give you updates on that. So in terms of ERB and ethics, in 2012, the Forum on Patronage and Pluralism in the Primary Sector requested that NCCA develop a curriculum in ERB and ethics, or advise the Minister on how a curriculum in ERB and ethics could be introduced to schools, to be more precise. I was appointed as Education Officer in the NCCA to progress this work in October 2013. And we proceeded to engage with research, engage with experts in the field. That's how I met Trish. Interest groups, I think probably many in the audience today, I have met through bilateral meetings or events or different bits and pieces that we've been to over the years and conversations we've had over coffee. And of course, patron bodies and other interest groups and stakeholders as well. In November 2015, we published a set of proposals for how ERB and ethics might be introduced to primary schools. And consultation ran until March 2016, during which time we had a record number of engagements for NCCA in any consultation up until that time. And this really demonstrated the interest and the sensitivities in this area of education. And people submitted responses through online questionnaires, written submissions, discussion groups, school-based case studies, and meetings with stakeholders and interest groups. In terms of numbers, this is what the consultation looked like. We had over 2,200 completed questionnaires, 168 written submission, 40 bilateral meetings with interest groups and stakeholders with detailed notes taken to form the feedback of the consultation. We had 3 conferences that we organised. We worked with 7 case study schools, really working with them in an in-depth and sustained way to ascertain their practice in relation to teaching about religions and beliefs and ethics, the challenges they faced in terms of including all faiths into their school, and learning from that. And we conducted 6 focus groups across the country as well, back when you could have focus groups face-to-face. So some of the general feedback that we received fell into 3 very broad categories here, folks. In general, we had a great deal of supportive feedback from teachers, parents, and members of the general public who felt that the proposals were a really positive step towards fostering greater understanding and respect in an increasingly diverse society. We also had feedback from stakeholders and other groups who were in favour of keeping things as they were, and that ERB and ethics was seen as perhaps challenging the status quo, particularly for some schools underpinning ethos in this regard. And really it was around one proposal in particular in the ERB and ethics proposals, where it asked for a fair and objective approach to representing beliefs and religions in curriculum. And that was, I suppose, interpreted in terms of teaching in an objective way. Now, anybody who stood in front of a class understands that you can't teach anything in an objective way, as values, social processes, cultural norms, biases, and all the rest of it come into teaching and learning. And teachers have to be very, very aware of all of that. But that was seen as challenging schools' right to underpin the ethos of their school in terms of what is taught and how it is taught in their schools. So that proposal in particular needed closer examination. Finally, we had the schools that we worked with, those 7 schools I mentioned, who are trying to find a way, trying to navigate through this changing societal context, these more diverse classrooms with little curricular support, like 0 curricular support from a national point of view in terms of religions and beliefs, and having to rely on their own resources, for whom ERB and ethics would offer significant support on its introduction. And cutting across these categories were issues around the structure of our education system, and school choice came into the mix, as well as issues of curriculum overload and schools saying, don't give us any more to teach, we have an overloaded curriculum as it is, which is something that is a feature across our curriculum. And all of this is available, folks, if you want to read more, in our consultation report on our website. So in terms of charting a ways forward then, it was agreed to take on board the consultation findings on ERB and ethics by including them in proposals for a redeveloped primary school curriculum in the years ahead. And these are the proposals that I'm going to speak you through in the next few slides. They're contained in that centerpiece there in the draft primary curriculum framework. And this framework really sets the direction in which primary curriculum is moving. And we're consulting on this currently, and that will set the tone for a redeveloped primary school curriculum in the years ahead. And this is currently the journey we're on. So let's turn our attention then to the draft primary curriculum framework. This really is an important document, particularly if you consider that since the 100 years since our independence as a nation, there have been 3 major curriculum reforms of primary: 1926, 1971, and 1999. And this now is the 4th. In this section, I'm going to speak a little bit about the components of the draft primary curriculum framework. And broadly, the framework sets out the proposed structure, the purpose, and the content of a new curriculum for the years ahead. The various components are listed on screen, and they include the vision, the principles, competencies, curriculum areas and subjects, and statements about teaching, learning, and assessment. So building on the 1971 curriculum I mentioned and the 99 curriculum, our current curriculum, the vision for the redeveloped curriculum is that it will provide a foundation for every child to thrive and to flourish, supporting them to realize their full potential as individuals, but also as members of community and society in childhood and indeed into their futures. Within this, it recognizes each child's uniqueness, as you can see on screen. Something that comes up strongly in our work with schools is the need to foreground the role of teachers more clearly. Therefore, there is an image of the teacher captured within the vision as a committed, skillful, and agentic professional. The draft framework sets out a set of principles that you can see on screen there, and the principles draw heavily on those in the 99 curriculum, but also acknowledge the changing times in which we live since then. And what's highlighted here, I think, for us is the importance of inclusive education, responding to diversity in its many forms, which has obvious relevance to this conference and will underpin all teaching and learning in the new curriculum. And when you reflect back on the 99 curriculum, the current primary school curriculum in schools, that principle, while it is within the curriculum, isn't as visible as maybe it could be, and certainly as it needs to be in a redeveloped primary school curriculum. It also proposes that the redeveloped curriculum has 7 key competencies that all children will work towards. And you can see them on screen there: being a digital learner, through to communicating and using language around to learning to be a learner, and being creative there as well, folks. And I'll highlight 2 in particular for people attending this event: being an active citizen and fostering well-being, both of which connect with the themes of the work of the Interfaith Forum, I believe, and the national forum that Trish and Jenny have arranged for everybody today. The draft framework also sets out proposals for what the curriculum areas might be in a redeveloped curriculum. And we've noted already that in recent years have brought calls for adding more areas to the curriculum, and very rarely asking to take things out of the curriculum. And one of those has been education about religions and beliefs and ethics. And the draft framework includes these both in the areas of well-being and in social and environmental education, in both those spaces. So if we take education about religions and beliefs first, this learning will be integrated into the social and environmental education area, and in particular in the subjects of history and geography. So children will learn about the historical, social, and geographical aspects of religions and beliefs in an inclusive classroom environment. Looking at ethics then, we're proposing that this sits within the area of well-being, and in particular in social, personal, and values education. And it's that values piece in particular that speaks to the inclusion of ethics in this area. In terms of the other learning, new learning that's incorporated, you'll notice that modern foreign languages feature from 3rd, 6th class. Technology education is present there, as well as an expanded arts education, including dance and digital media, film, and other expressions of arts education. As you can see on the right-hand side of the graphic, the framework also references the religious, ethical, multi-belief education or patrons program that's a part of the primary school experience. So that program that's developed by patrons for their schools to support the ethos of their schools that underpin all that they do within their schools. Regarding the proposals on teaching, learning and assessment, the draft framework proposes that a redeveloped curriculum would provide more practical supports for curriculum integration, that it would promote pedagogy that responds to children's interests, their needs and their local circumstances. Again, this builds on the key ideas of agency and flexibility for children and teachers. It will support inclusive practices that enable children to belong, to feel respected, confident, and safe so that they can engage in meaningful learning. Again, I think this point in particular resonates with the theme of the conference and the event today. It will promote more play-based, inquiry-based, and active learning and teaching with a focus on the outdoors. Interestingly, recently around education for sustainable development and climate action, the focus has been on connecting with the outdoors, because in that connection, children can make a clear distinction or clear connection with what they're learning about and where the environment in which they learn and how it impacts. In the draft framework, assessment is highlighted as a core part of teachers' everyday work, but assessment in framing it as teachers' professional judgments and decisions based on the evidence and the children in front of them, and recognizing that as being as important, if not more important, than summative or external assessments in the pursuit of education. So now that you've seen the proposals of a redeveloped curriculum, we're eager to hear from you and your thoughts on them. We published draft framework back in February 2020, but we had to hold off, as you can imagine, on public consultation until the COVID situation had improved. But we reopened our consultation in October 2021, so just last October. It will remain open until February 2022, and we would encourage everybody to contribute and have your say. We have many ways to get involved. You can attend focus groups, fill out an online questionnaire. We work with our schools forum that I mentioned earlier on. We will have a national consultative conference, more than likely at the end of February. And we'll be consulting with children on an ongoing basis through this work. We have 2 research projects on consulting with children, both at early childhood and at primary, which are really informative of the work that we're undertaking. And we invite written submissions from everybody in terms of the proposals that I've outlined. Just looking ahead to where all of this goes, we'll be looking at this consultation until February 2022, as I mentioned. We'll be publishing the framework the finalized framework in early 2023. And then that kicks off our specification development. So that development of curriculum specifications for each area that I outlined earlier on. And that will take up to 3 years to about 2026, when the completed curriculum specifications will be provided to the Minister for their approval at that point in time. I want to say a real Gorv Maigwib Guglair, and thank you very much to everybody, in particular to Trish and Jenny, again, for their organization of the event. Again, my sincere apologies for not being with you today. It just couldn't be helped. I really look forward to engaging with you all again at the next event. You can see our website online. Please do go and have your say on our consultation on the draft primary curriculum framework. And you can also see my email address on screen. And please do get in touch if you wish to speak about any of the presentation or anything in relation to primary education. Thank you very much, and I look forward to seeing you all soon.